So I'm a father of one. I gotta find a babysitter. I found Care.com and I was blown away. Through the platform, I was able to find local and experienced candidates along with their reviews and rates, which were way more affordable than I anticipated. Care.com really put me at ease knowing that they were all required to go through a background check. If you're like me and you need to find someone reliable for your childcare necessities, check out Care.com. Find the ideal sitters for your childcare needs.
My 13-year-old acts like a puppy again. Almost overnight, she's a different dog.
Perfect poops.
When people switch their dog's food to the farmer's dog, the effects can seem like magic. But there's no magic involved. It's simply real meat and vegetables with all the nutrients dogs need, instead of highly processed pellets. No tricks, just smarter, healthier pet food delivered in packs portioned for your dog. It's amazing what real food can do. Get 50% off your first order at thefarmersdog.com/nomagicfifty.
This is Kansas State's Felix Enyedike Uzama, and you're listening to the Power Cat Podcast on the 24/7 Sports Podcast Network. Make sure you're subscribing to this show on your favorite podcast provider.
Welcome to another edition of the Power Cat Questions Podcast. A lot going on in the Kansas State sports world. We're going to talk about some of it, but not all of it on this edition of your Power Cat Podcast. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, and Ryan Gilbert here in the GPC studio. Cole Carmody was going to stick around, but he feared the weather because it is 8 o'clock as we tape this on Wednesday night. It was signing day. We're not going to get into much recruiting, if at all, on this podcast. Ryan Wallace and I will get together here in the next day or two and talk about recruiting with the entire podcast, committed to that. He is our expert, and he worked his butt off on Wednesday, as did Zach Carlson, who also helped out with all the stuff going on with recruiting, and then went to the basketball game and covered that. And then we had a football press conference and did that. And here we are. We started a basketball game. I think we showed up basketball noon, 12:30, and it's 8 o'clock, and we're podcasting. But we'll get into all of those topics. And most importantly, we appreciate you being along for the ride. And we're sponsored by Fridge Wholesale Liquor. Make sure you stop into the Fridge. Get your holiday shopping done at the Fridge. If your wife wants a pair of shoes or your husband wants a new tie, which I'm sure is exactly what he wants, I think whiskey would be better. So just say, Fitz wanted me to buy you booze for Christmas, and go to the Fridge. And for, you know what, let's be honest, a little Fireball makes a great stocking stuffer. Just get those little tiny bottles and
or a big bottle.
A big bottle. Yeah, it really doesn't fit in your stocking. So just put it next to the stocking. But do all that at the Fridge Wholesale Liquor, our longtime sponsors of the Power Cat Podcast. Let's not mess around anymore. Let's get going. Ryan Gilbert will read the questions. We will all answer the questions, and this is how it works. If you're a subscriber to Go Power Cat, you get to ask the questions at Wabash Station, our premium message board. If you're not a subscriber, go ahead and fix that. An incredible deal right now at Go Power Cat. Wasn't even a deal we knew was going to happen, and then Paramount Plus said, hey, we're in. Let's do this. Paramount Plus and 24/7 packaged together at a discount. So normally when you buy a 24/7 subscription at a discount, you don't get Paramount Plus until you're up to full price. And then, of course, that would kick in because it's a $100 value on top of your $100 value with 24/7 Sports. And right now you can get both for your first year at $50. It's beautiful. And then you just pay for your 24/7 Sports subscription after that at full price, and you still get Paramount Plus. Man, it's so good. Such a good deal. Go check that out. We appreciate it if you would subscribe to us this holiday season. Mr. Gilbert, take it away.
First question is from our good friend Jerome Yang. Does Nick Saban respect Kansas State? He is very difficult to read.
He's so dry and stoic. I don't think he does. I don't think he knows jack crap about Kansas State other than Bill Snyder coached here. I really don't. But that's okay.
I think it's more the question of if he respects this upcoming game against Kansas State, not playing in the playoffs. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't really think so.
What?
That he takes the game seriously, I guess. I just think he probably thinks it's going to be a cakewalk, easy game. It's Alabama. When you think about, it's a down year, we're playing in the Sugar Bowl, it doesn't matter what bowl game it is, really. It matters that they're not in the playoff. And if there's nothing to play for, and I'm with you, Fitz, on your theory that Will Anderson and Bryce Young are not actually going to play this bowl game.
If they do, it'll be a series or something. I think it's all Bill Snyder stuff. It just reminds me of rolling Jesse Ertz, who was clearly hurt, out not to just suit up, but to warm up for the game when he had no intention of playing him. It just strikes me as that. I'm going to send him to this press conference, and they're going to talk about it.
It reminds me of Josh Rosen at the Cactus Bowl a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. When we knew he wasn't going to play.
We knew he wasn't playing, but they still strutted him out.
Well, they didn't say he wasn't playing.
Right.
We knew he wouldn't.
Right. We knew he wasn't playing. They didn't say that, but I kind of get that feeling.
Agree.
That it's just like, yeah, they're there, but are they actually going to play? So, I don't know. It just seems strange.
I understand Alabama has a really good roster, and they can beat a lot of teams by, not preparing, but there's got to be some level of respect, game in and game out, playing in the SEC for your opponents, because if you don't prepare properly, you don't respect them, you're not going to go to the college football playoff year after year if your players aren't always bought in. Now, are they going to be bought in for, again, like you said, Zach, a non-college football playoff game? We'll see. But I'd imagine that there is some level of respect for his opponents.
Well, they lost to two teams, but I think when you're in the SEC, you just think every team in your conference is better than everyone else. I mean, there's no comparing the SEC to anyone else. And I think the two teams they lost to are very comparable to Kansas State. I think Kansas was infinitely better than Missouri. I saw them play both play, and I watched them in other games this season. Missouri's bad, and they went 6-6. They got to bowl eligible by playing an SEC schedule. So I don't accept that the SEC top to bottom is better than everyone. In fact, I think the middle of the Big 12 was much more competitive than the middle of the SEC. But there's no doubt Alabama's an incredible program, but they also beat Texas by 1 point. Texas wasn't in the Big 12 championship. Granted, Texas manhandled Kansas State in the first half of that game, but we're not going to are we going to really judge Kansas State by the one bad half the horrible bad half they played against Texas?
K-State nearly on their final drive scored a touchdown that would have given them the win, just like Alabama did against Texas. So I think it's probably pretty comparable looking at those opponents there.
I think it's going to be an entertaining game. I hope they're at full. I hope they don't have the excuse. Maybe they kick Kansas State's ass. Maybe they just run up and down the field, and K-State can't handle the size or the speed. But the one thing I like about K-State is they know who they are. And they always feel like they've got something to prove. And I talked to a reporter from New Orleans about this, that, K-Staters, we're an ag institution. Not everyone's an ag major, but when you go to school here, you pick up some of those traits that you're around those kids. And you just kind of handle whatever's going on, whether it's good or bad. You just keep doing what you're doing. The farmer can't control the rain, but he has to work with it. If it's raining too much or not enough, you still got to do your job. And I think that's what cuts Kansas State people out of the cloth, is that attitude. We're just going to handle. We're just going to keep going forward in life and handle what's in front of us. And that's Felix Anudike-Uzomah coming out of high school at 190 pounds, looking like he doesn't belong on the field at Fort Hays State, let alone Kansas State. And now this is going to be this will answer the question. Does Nick Saban respect Kansas State? If they don't double team Felix, they don't respect the whole team. He's the best player on defense. Everyone in the Big 12 has double-teamed him almost every snap, because when he wasn't double-teamed, he was disruptive. You had to. People look at the stats with the Texas guys. Don't understand why this guy's Big 12 Player of the Year on the defensive side with those stats. It's because every offense in the conference had to commit so many resources to stop him, they still couldn't function fully. That's an accomplishment. And if they single team him in the first quarter, they don't respect K-State, and they're going to find out that it was a mistake, period.
Next question from CFID. What is Alabama's biggest weakness and strength?
Well, they really have struggled stopping the run at times this year, which I find absolutely amazing. They are, in talking to their reporter, I taped something, a Sugar Bowl preview for CBS Sports HQ with one of their guys, and he said Deuce Vaughn's a concern because they have given up rushing yardage this year. So that does make me wonder if they won't kind of put Adrian Martinez out there in some type of role to help run the ball. So it's going to be interesting to see how K-State attacks it. Do they come out and just try to run it? I think they need to probably spread the field and create space for Deuce, but we'll see how they go about it. But, yeah, that is an area. And, they have freak athletes, but if you're Alabama, you probably don't spend as much time on special teams as other schools, as the K-State does. So I think that's an area where K-State can make something happen.
Stepping away from just the X's and O's, the physicality, the talent that Alabama's second strings, third strings, whoever plays is going to be an advantage over Kansas State. I know that was kind of the theme last year against LSU. So you can say what you want about stopping the run, all that stuff. But Kansas State's going to have to toughen up because this is probably going to be the most physical game they've played all season, right?
Could be. This is a really physical. TCU's physical. TCU's dirty.
And that goes back to the first question. How bought in is Alabama? Are they playing at full strength?
I think the weakness is focus, potentially.
Yeah.
Is Alabama focused on winning this game? And I would lean towards no before I said yes.
Just my history covering bowl games, this is exactly the recipe for a team that's not going to be bought in, not going to be focused. But we'll see. They still got to play. But I always come back to this. There's not a player on Alabama's roster that was going to come to K-State, and there's not a player on K-State's roster who was ever considered to go to Alabama. I don't care who you play. You still represent your brand. And if you lose to this, I would say it's a humiliating loss for Alabama if they lose this game. And I think it would be a remarkable victory for Kansas State just based on brand and perceptions.
If Alabama has all of its players playing at full strength and K-State loses, I don't think it's that big of a deal, right? But
no. If
Bryce Young plays a series and K-State loses, then there's a lot more embarrassment there.
Yeah, I would agree. At the end of the day, unless you're just blown out off the field, I don't see it as an embarrassment to lose to Alabama. The vaunted SEC teams do it. Why would it be losing by 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns to Alabama when the SEC all does it throughout the year? We'll see how it all plays out. I just like where this K-State's team at. I wish they had a little more health on the back end with the safeties, but it is what it is.
I don't think it's embarrassing to lose to Alabama, but I think it's still frustrating if you're a K-State fan.
I would agree.
Because after each of the last 2 Big 12 championships, you've gone to the Fiesta Bowl, you've lost, and not particularly closely. It hasn't been – either of them have not been good games. So the last time you've been in the BCS, and now for the first time in the New Year's Six – I feel like it's almost a must-win type of game for K-State to continue moving forward. I don't think that it's going to be devastating if they lose. It's just we couldn't fully get over the hump there.
If there's one difference between Chris Kleiman and Bill Snyder, Chris Kleiman's better against top 10 programs. The numbers are there. I don't have them in front of me, but the numbers are obvious. He wins more games against top 10 programs. In fact, I think he has a winning record against top 10 programs, and I don't think Coach Snyder beat more than a handful during his time. So I knew it was different when they went to Mississippi State and won. And I knew it was all different right there. So, they've got that win. They've got it. LSU last year, Missouri this year. Those games haven't been close.
Yeah.
So I'm all in. I think this is going to be a competitive game. And it comes back to this. Know who you are, what you do, and how you need to do it, and you can compete. And K-State, Chris Kleiman, that's what he's good at. It's exactly what he's good at.
To make a comparison to playing at KU in basketball, you got to avoid that first-round knockout punch because this is an NFL stadium with, Alabama's got a lot of NFL players on that team. This is a big environment. The Big 12 championship was big, but now they're going up against Alabama. In the first couple possessions, Kansas State has got to stay poised and can't get behind early in this game.
I agree. Totally agree. If you can come out and start competing with them.
Set the tone.
Right. Yeah. Set the tone.
Next, from Contra Cat, what segment of the game is a must-win for either team to win the Sugar Bowl? The trenches, offense, defense, the offensive backfield, the offensive ends, tight end, wide receiver, the defensive backfield, cornerback, safety, the defensive linebackers, the defense linebackers, special teams, a lot of stuff.
Basically the whole field.
Yeah.
The whole field.
Well, I'll go back to this. Look, they're really good in the trenches. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, that's the difference. I mean, we talk about the Heisman Trophy guys and the stars, but they're right. When Coach Kleiman says it's all about them up front, he's exactly right. Because the hardest commodity to get in college football recruiting are defensive tackles, and Alabama kind of gets to pick theirs. That's a concern for me. That's a concern for me. I love Hayden Gillum, but he is a former walk-on from Western Kansas who isn't known as a big, powerful guy. He's a technician. I'm worried about that. If Kansas State can hold its own to the point where they can give Will Howard time to operate and read the field, they've got a chance. If they can apply enough pressure and contain Bryce Young without letting him get all over the place because he is special, they've got a chance. And I think they can do those things. But if they start getting their ass whooped along the line of scrimmage, like Texas did, that's my concern, is they couldn't match up physically with Texas in the first half because they just weren't quite locked in, and they were in the second half.
I wouldn't label this as a must-win, rather a must-not-lose, and that's the secondary, getting beat on some deep balls.
That's my must-win.
You don't necessarily have to win it. You just can't give up those deep balls, if that makes sense.
I mean, if you don't give those up, that's a win.
Yeah, sure, I guess. But you don't have to dominate the secondary, in my opinion.
At the very least, at the very least, Julius Brents needs to have a 1 ratio of pass interferences to interceptions or huge plays.
How fired up do you think he is for this opportunity? I mean, he's risen in the draft world this season. You know, he's gotten more physical. He's more aggressive as a cover guy. If he has a big game, he could really turn some heads with.
I feel like that's a lot for K-State. Mm-hmm. I think Felix can improve his stock. Deuce can improve his stock. There's a ton of guys out there that can improve their stock.
The only guy that was injured in the Big 12 championship that Coach Kleiman's concerned about coming back is Echo Boydo, and they kind of need him. Now, Echo's not a big cover guy, but he's pretty reliable back there, as opposed to putting a true freshman playing against Alabama. So, yeah, that gets back to what you said, though. Even if you think the Felixes and BBs and Deuces and Will Howards and Daniel Greens can line up and match with Alabama, but what happens when you put your number 2s out there? Do they match? I mean, is that drop-off then even more obvious than what you had before? But this is it. There's no other game. So you don't have to rest them for next week. You just got to get them through this week, this game.
Last question of the first half. Kirk Amo 14. How'd I do, Zach?
Kirkamo, I think.
Okay. Sorry, Kirkamo. Didn't mean to offend you.
We're just assuming. I think this is their first time, so welcome.
Welcome.
Is that a Beach Boys song? Kirkamo?
I think that's Rick Ross.
You went way too specific in your Beach Boys for us, I think.
What will Kleiman's salary be after the bowl game? $6 million? $6.5 million?
I don't think it'll be that high.
I don't think it'll be that high, but
I think. What's the number start with now? Is he at a 3? Is he 4?
I think he's 4.
Okay.
I think he's got to get to the 5s.
Yeah.
Gene Taylor, good luck figuring out how to pay him and the assistants so you don't get those guys stolen, although it seems to be like a pretty solid group. I think the Scotty Hazelton effect is lingering, where Scotty took the money and, took what he thought was a career step, and now he's not well liked in East Lansing. And
I saw a headline today that said Mel Tucker's not looking to make any changes.
Good.
So he's safe.
Good. But I think it was good notice to everyone else. It's not always about money. Being secure in where you're at and happy in where you're at is important. And let's also add this. At some point, Jerome Tang gets this program to the NCAA tournament after the whole rebuild he had to do. Probably need to pay him a little bit more, too. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know. Folks, you're going to have to start donating more, but please don't do it at the expense of not getting GoPowerCat.com. If you got a few $1 million laying around extra, go ahead and donate that to the Kleiman Tang Foundation. But $100, just come on, just toss it our way. Just help us out.
Kleiman, he obviously deserves a raise for getting to the bowl game, win or lose, and winning a Big 12 title game. But today, the press conference we had with the signing class, right? The future is just so bright, and it's not
amazing.
It's not just what's going on right now. I mean, this is the best signing class, Taylor Bratt said he's ever had, right? At least in his current role.
History, yeah.
So there's so many reasons to give him a raise, not just for, the bowl game like the question states.
There's a thread on Wabash Station about did the Big 12 championship impact the late commitments in the recruiting class? And it's tangible. I think that's possible. But I think the bigger payoff for that is next year. The bigger payoff is, if you beat Alabama too, maybe you get some guys to come to Manhattan, Kansas that would have never, ever considered doing that. And Chris Kleiman's right. Manhattan, Kansas State. Why am I going to go visit there? Then they come, they see the town, they see the campus, they meet the people, and they see that game day atmosphere that is shocking considering the stadium size, and it gets your attention.
Just got to get him here.
Got to get him here. And that's been their thing. If we get him here, we got a real chance. Got to get him here. That's it for the first half of this PowerCat Questions podcast. We'll be back on the other side with some more talk with your questions from Wabash Station. Not only will Ryan Wallace and I have a recruiting podcast later, but over the weekend, I'm going to work on a special Sugar Bowl preview podcast, not the game preview podcast, but we're going to take the sound we got from Monday's press conference and put it into a podcast format. I'll kind of tie it all together, and we'll have that up either on the 25th, which, by the way, is Christmas. Did you know Christmas falls on the 25th this year?
Did you know that is Marquise Noel's birthday?
That's the gift that keeps on giving. And then, or it might be on the 26th, which is when we travel. And so we'll want some content up from there. Ryan Gilbert is standing by to read more questions, so you stand by to listen.
This is Kansas State's Cooper Beebe. The leaders in K-State sports coverage will be right back with more of the PowerCat podcast.
JamesAllen.com is the online destination to easily design a customized engagement ring and save up to 50% compared to traditional stores. You pick a diamond, whether it's lab-created or earth-created. James Allen has over 200,000 conflict-free stones. Then you pick your ring setting and metal. And if you need some help, they have real-time diamond consultations available, where an expert can walk you through it all. Get 25% off your order at JamesAllen.com code podcast. That's JamesAllen.com code podcast.
This is Kansas State's Daniel Green, and welcome back to the PowerCat podcast on the 24/7 Sports Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the PowerCat Questions Podcast. Tim Fitzgerald, Zach Carlson, Ryan Gilbert, two adorable dogs that are being very good here in the GPC studio. Oh, they're worn out. They've had a big day. I have too. It's been a long day. Football recruiting, we'll have much more of that coming at Go PowerCat. Incredible job by Ryan Wallace and everyone else on the team, except for me. I didn't do crap. And I mean that. I mean that sincerely. That's one of those days when the boss just gets out of the way because the guy in charge of that, Wally, is so good at it. Just get out of his way and let him do his thing. And, of course, there was a basketball game, and I hear a rumor around the office here that our entire second half of this podcast is going to be about basketball. People seem to like Jerome Tang and this team. They're 11-1. West Virginia awaits on the same day as the Sugar Bowl, December 31st. That's the next game for the Cats. So let's answer some questions from Wabash Station, and all of it sponsored by The Fridge. Ryan Gills. Zach is taking it.
I'll read them.
Whoa! We called an audible here at the last second.
Yep.
Zach Carlson.
I'll read
this
them.
Is like
Cole's not here.
This is a throwback here. Zach's reading the question.
From Salt Hawk Cat, how fun is basketball? What is Jerome Tang's ceiling, and what is his floor if you had to predict it?
It's funny because we had a thread on Wabash after the game. Someone was wanting to get a rewatch of the game or something. And I said, you could probably flip on SportsCenter and see half the game just on Naquan Tomlin's dunks because it's fun, And I've always said about, like the previous staff, winning is winning, but the style of how this, Tang staff is winning is just, it's fun. So the ceiling is obviously the NCAA tournament, and I've said that coming into this season, the 8-9 matchup is probably the team's ceiling, and maybe they get a little higher than that, but I think right now Lunardi's got him at like a 10 seed, so that's kind of on par. The floor, you go probably 6-12 in the league, and while that's not ideal, you probably don't get into the big dance with that record. That's still very respectable playing in a tough conference like the Big 12, and just the different playmakers they have. Today it was, Naquan Tomlin going off of 26 big points, and then we know what Keontae Johnson can do when the competition stiffens, right? Marquise Noel is the anchor of this team, so they've just got so many different playmakers and weapons, and I think we were talking last week with Tang how he mentioned, like right now they're kind of scheming around what other teams' strengths are, right? And he would like it to be the opposite, but he's acknowledging that this team isn't nearly as good as it can be, and they still have so much more learning to do. He's still learning a lot about Marquise Noel. So the floor is very high. I know maybe I'll say a 6 seed in the NCAA tournament, which, Tang mentioned that.
I agree.
It's a top 25 team.
If you want to win the big dance, you've got to be one of the top, 5 or 6 seeds? Nobody lower than that has ever won. So the ceiling is high. They're only going to get better. Keontae Johnson's only been playing for a number of months after sitting out. Naquan Tomlin's been playing organized basketball for a couple of years, right? Marquise Noel, like I said, is still learning Tang and the staff. So they're going to get better as the season goes on.
I think the best comp here for Keontae Johnson is Mitch Richmond. And because they're both kind of just so casual and yet dangerous, they have a good shot from the outside, but they're so big and strong. But the thing I see the most now that I've noticed from him, the bigger the opponent or stage, the bigger he is. And if you want to be successful, you got to have that guy. Marquise Noel is so much better defined as a player. I want to give him credit because he's done it, but it's been incredible coaching. They have had some tough love with him that he has not typically received or accepted in the past, and they've done that. And Naquan Tomlin, oh my Lord, this kid has played 3 years of organized basketball. Didn't he redshirt at junior college? So he's got this is his 4th year. He didn't play high school basketball, if you're not familiar with that. He did not play high school basketball. He was so good on the playgrounds, Rucker Park or wherever else he was playing in New York. He ended up going to junior college and redshirted and started playing. This kid is still discovering what he can do. And in this game against Radford, he did some crap that I've never seen in Bramlage Coliseum by the home team.
You've seen it by the away team. He did a dribble penetration dunk that I thought he was going to pull up to shoot a little 8-footer, and he took a step forward and dunked it. And I'm like, wow, what? What? And then they threw him an alley-oop that was well behind him, so he just reached up with his backhand, grabbed the ball in one motion, threw it down because he was so far above the rim. And he can shoot it. Keep in mind, he sealed the Nebraska game with a 3-pointer. It's crazy, guys. These players have been out there of different varieties and forms, and no way has K-State bringing them in. Now this team with 11 new players is so athletic that I'm just in shock at how athletic they are. And they played incredible defense against Nebraska, which was a bigger team. How was Kansas City?
It was great.
The environment?
Fans were great.
Great.
And there was quite a few Nebraska fans. There was more Nebraska fans than I expected. People said they'd travel. But I'm like, really? Nebraska basketball? But there were. And part of it's probably because they're stars from Kansas City. But
see, I think these first 3 games of conference play, I don't think they're critical, but I think that you'll learn what this team is going to be in conference play for those first 3 games. I think you have a winnable game against West Virginia to open conference play. It's going to be in a mostly empty arena, unfortunately, because it's the same day as the Sugar Bowl. But hopefully it's a good environment for the guys. If you win that game and you can go get one of your road games at either Texas or Baylor, you're on a great path to start conference play. But if you're 1-2, it's not the end of the world. And I think that, that's your pace is 6-12, which I think even if you're 1-2, you can expect probably a little better than 6-12. But if you start 0-3, if you can't figure out one win, I'm worried about that spiraling and getting out of control before you get into some maybe not easy, but some beatable teams like Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, teams that really haven't been amazing in non-conference play.
The Butler game still sticks in the back of my mind, and that's a scary one when you think about it, because K-State was dominated really from start to finish in that game. And Tang mentioned how the staff's got to be better to get those guys ready to win. But a loss like that, if that happens the first 3 games, like you mentioned, Zach, it's going to be a long season. And I think K-State's got a high ceiling. They've made strides since that game in November, but that game still could very well happen at any given moment in the Big 12 just because of how good the league is. So there's a high ceiling, but at the same time, we've seen some blows from this team, and they have kind of like the LSU game, the Nevada game down in the Caymans, those final 2 games. It almost seemed like K-State slept walk through the first half and eventually came out with a win, but you can't do that in the Big 12. You've got to come out firing and play closer to 30, 35 minutes of that perfect basketball that Tang talks about. You can't just play good for the final 10 minutes of the game like they did against Wichita State and come out with a W. The Big 12 is just simply, too good for that.
I think the most important game K-State's played this season has been Butler.
Yep.
They got taught a lesson. You better come ready. And if you look, I haven't looked at the updated ones, but when I did my daily delivery about the strength of schedule, Nevada's the top team on the schedule so far. They've played really good basketball after the Cayman Islands. And Butler was right there, and so was LSU. Cal's the worst. Cal's still winless.
I thought they won one.
Did they win?
I
thought they were winless.
The last I heard, they were the last winless team in college basketball.
That's an accomplishment. So I think
they beat UT Arlington. So
congrats to them.
Oh.
Big time win.
Yeah.
They're 1-12.
They've played some decent teams that have prepared them for what's coming. And what's coming is a really good test from West Virginia. Bob Huggins went out and put together a Huggins-type team. So that will be a really nice test for K-State. But they've got guards that can handle the ball, that can handle some pressure, although Marquise kind of freaked out a little bit tonight or today against Radford. Actually a pretty decent Radford team. But, you're right. Let's see what they do against West Virginia. West Virginia's much better than we expected, but so is Kansas State. Let's go. Let's see what happens.
This will be a big game for Keontae Johnson. And we've mentioned, both me and you, Fitz, about how he steps up when the competition gets better. I think part of that is simply the fact that he's not 100% right now. In playing Radford or Abilene Christian, whoever it may be, I don't think there's much of I wouldn't call it an urgency, but a demand from the coaching staff to go out and play 100% for all 40 minutes. So he's not 100%. He said 85% the last time we heard from him about how he's feeling. So he's only going to get better, but he's also only going to get healthier, build that confidence up, the stamina. I think that's probably the toughest part for him is just, playing that hard. Remember Nigel Johnson was like thrown up on the sideline against Kansas when they upset the Jayhawks one year. Like that's because he's not used to playing at that level. And so, Johnson's still got to get there. He will, but I think there's a reason that, how many points did he have today? Like 10 or something against Radford. He'll kick it up a notch once Big 12 play hits, and the staff has kind of slowly been working him back into the swing of things. And now this is the time to really get serious about this Big 12 play.
You're right. The thing I like about him, though, is they got in trouble against LSU. Desi Sills was the guy that stepped up. They had a game earlier this year where David Gasson was the guy that stepped up. They just have more guys that can play at the 20-point in a game level than what K-State's had in a long time.
With all due respect to Mike McGurl, there's a lot less glue guys on this team that K-State's had in the past, which you need some guys like that to give you good defense, good energy, but there's a lot more players on this team that can step up and score.
Absolutely.
On any given night.
I would love to get Jerome Tang, like, in an honest moment to say, is there anything you regret, any players you regret not keeping? Like maybe that Sultan Miguel could have helped you or, which I think actually he was the guy that I thought fit the style the best. He kind of reminds me of a Desi Sills in a way. if they did what they've done with Marquise to him, I feel like there could have been a real upside there. But
the obvious answer is Nigel Pack because of his scoring, but scoring hasn't been much of an issue for Kansas State. I mean, Nigel Pack's defense was mediocre, right? Like, he wasn't a great facilitator. He's an awesome scorer, but I think K-State's proving that they have scores on this team.
Right. I agree.
Oh yeah, it's me that's asking them. From 3G, I was looking away.
That was funny.
Just waiting on Gills. From 3G Wildcat, what record does Jerome Tang's team need in conference play to continue the upward direction of K-State basketball?
I think 8-10. You know, I think
unless 7-11 gets you into the big, and I keep saying the big dance.
To continue the upward direction, you need that high, you think?
If you get in the NCAA tournament, you're going up. So 7-11, 8-10, whatever that may be.
I mean, 6-12 is still going up. I know that that's going to be disappointing. But if you can make the NIT,
but Tang's not going for that. The standard is the NCAA tournament.
Yes,
anything less is a bust.
I
which
understand
is true
that
for every Power 5 team. But Tang, he means that.
It's still the first year. I get that that's the goal,
but he didn't come here to rebuild, though.
If they fall,
elevate.
If they fall short of that, guess what? The NIT is elevating.
I understand everything you're saying, but I think he wants to make it a more tangible. Hell yeah, we're here.
No doubt.
Convert this over to the recruiting trail. We're going to go up from here, and he wants that baseline of what they do this season to be as high as possible. And I do think 8 wins in the conference. For me, that means, unless you screwed up in the non-conference, you're in the tournament. Because, if they beat Florida, they'll be a 20-win team going to Kansas City for the Big 12 tournament. So I think that clearly gets them in. And plus, let's just be honest, it's a good story. It's a good brand of basketball. You got Keontae, you got Jerome Tang, you got all these other guys. I think this program feels like it's more something that would want to be included in the tournament than what we've had in the past. That's me. I don't know.
If you've got to go into Kansas City and win a game to get in to the NCAA tournament, that's fine. And if you win that game, I think that's a successful season because it is year 1 and it's not year 6 or whatever with Weber when he had that situation where he had to go in and play Wake Forest in the first 64 round, whatever it's called. It always changes.
I just think it's extremely early to be anything other than absolutely delighted if K-State makes the NCAA tournament. I think that goal is extremely lofty, and if you make it, you're on cloud 9. Yeah. But if you don't make it, it's not a disappointment. You're still going up if you make the NIT, especially if you get to host at least a couple of games in the NIT. If you're one of those first 8 teams out, no sweat. Not a big deal, I think, going forward.
I'd have to look, but wasn't Urick an assistant? I guess he was probably at Tech.
What?
When Texas won the NIT. I'm probably wrong. Never mind.
I don't know.
So there would be, a sense of urgency to win those NIT games, but it's like Alabama, right? We're talking about the bowl game, right? It wouldn't be nearly as high if they were playing in the NCAA tournament, right?
Sure.
So to get there would be awesome. I'd probably put it at like a coin flip right now, 50-50 for K-State to make it or not. I mean, like right now they're in and they're squarely, and they're not even on the bubble anymore, according to Lunardi.
But also, Lunardi's not the committee. He's
and this
entertainment.
This is ridiculous. He's got all 10 Big 12 teams in, which just
That's not happening.
Can't happen. I mean, someone's got to lose the games unless everyone ends up at 9-9. Which would be
if all 10 teams made the NCAA tournament, that'd be wild.
Yeah.
But it's crazy.
You got to win the close games. And K-State's proven. Yeah. LSU, Nevada, Wichita State, those games were all close, and good teams find ways to win. And Tang mentioned that today in the press conference, how it comes down to, I think 4 or 5 games that will make or break your season. You're a 6-win team or you're going solidly into the NCAA tournament. I think that's pretty comparable to last year. I mean, it was ugly at times, sure, but K-State was relatively close to getting over the hump and squarely being in the field. So there's a fine line in college basketball playing in the Big 12, and this season is certainly no different for Kansas State.
Next question is from Kat in Colo. Although football is on our collective minds, please discuss basketball for a bit. My take is that despite their great start, a lack of consistent scoring beyond Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel will really hurt them in the Big 12. And good Big 12 defenses will focus on Keontae. Can you talk me off the cliff?
I feel like we already have, haven't we?
Well, but
I disagree kind of with the question.
Consistent scoring behind two guys that can score. I feel like Naquan Tomlin or there's always going to be a third guy, and I feel like Naquan could be even better. But if you got three dudes, you got a team. And you just said they got two dudes. And in the past few years, they've had one. I've had one. So this team scores at a much more casual rate than the past teams. Now, I was really concerned about defense, and then they looked really good against Nebraska defensively. They didn't look so good against Radford, but again, I don't think they had their full attention there. Although they played Radford better than a lot of other Power 5 programs have this year. So, no, I don't. My problem isn't scoring. They're going to score. It's can they match in the post? And, they're going to be able to hold up on defense, particularly against some of the bigger teams. I don't know who that is in the conference, because even Kansas doesn't have a traditional center right now. They've gone athletic in the post.
Against Incarnate Word, Dorian Finister, Marquise Noel, Cam Carter, David Gasson, Desi Sills, Naquan Tomlin, and Keontae Johnson all scored double figures. So
I believe it's the first time in program history 7 have gone into double figures.
Definitely the first time in the Tom Gilbert era, right?
Well, what's funny about it is you stop and think about it. You have to score at least 70 points to have 7 guys get in double figures, and that eliminates a lot of games, right?
From a time period.
Right.
In the last 10 years, yeah.
But even if you go back further than that, teams before the three-point line weren't
scoring. If you
scoring.
go back before the 80s, yeah.
Yeah.
It does come with a cost, though. Like David Gasson, he's shown some great flashes on offense. On defense, he's a liability in some cases. I mean, Naquan Tomlin's an athletic guy, and he kind of makes up for his lack of, I guess, strength with that athleticism. But, again, I hate to keep harping on this, but playing in the Big 12, it's not going to be as easy. So K-State's going to be able to score. I think the mismatches on defense may cause some troubles for Kansas State.
I agree. I would totally agree.
Final question of the podcast from Calm Manhattan Waters. The bonus football schedule has hurt the momentum to start filling Bramlage Coliseum again, which the basketball team deserves. Will we see a packed house for any games before KU comes to town?
When do students come back? Mid to late January?
King
Once that happens, I think Bramlage will be sold out for all the Big 12 games.
This is going to be a challenge for K-State fans is to...
I guess that is January 17th, so...
break the habit of only starting complete focus on basketball until football's completely over. I mean, and in some ways I understand. Kansas State does not have a huge fan base. It just doesn't. It's not who the institution is. It's not a real big school. And a lot of people have to come from remote areas. It puts a lot of stress on the same people. For example, I talked about Nebraska bringing more fans than I expected. Well, maybe those are the Nebraska basketball fans that's kind of their sport. I don't know. They have a bigger fan base. They just do.
The football team's not doing too good.
Exactly. But K-Staters are going to have to realize that basketball starts before football is over. And it's just kind of a cultural thing where they don't quite engage all the way. And I get it. A lot of the non-conference games aren't worth going to. I get it. I've said this again. I wouldn't mind them playing away from Bramlage, at Kansas City, at Wichita every year to go to the fans, because it is hard to get fans in for some of these games. Play a non-Power 5, Power 6, whatever it is in basketball down in Wichita. Play one from a power conference in Kansas City every year. I'm fine with that. Like this game should have been in Kansas City. Not this particular game, but this date could have been in Kansas City, and everyone gets their getaway game to go home for the holidays. Now, falling in the middle of the week made it more difficult. You want that game to be on Saturday so everyone can come out, have fun. But yeah, I love it. Just play the game and go home.
Credit to K-State for not checking out with the holidays coming up, because Radford's a respectable team, and if K-State was just thinking about West Virginia on New Year's Eve, this could have been an upset. But to answer the question, West Virginia, it's going to be a ghost town here in Manhattan because everyone's going to be gone. And then Oklahoma State, that's it before the KU game. So, and that's still during winter break for Kansas State. So I don't think we'll see it sold out very much until KU.
But I know it won't be sold out, but I really do hope that K-State fans who hold tickets to the West Virginia game and are going to the Sugar Bowl find someone, donate them to the military, do something. They need to get fans in there for their game. And I think there will be a surprising number of fans. Wichita State game kind of proved it. You know, everyone was down in Arlington, but they still had a fairly crowded Bramlage Coliseum. What was the crowd roughly for that game?
Oh, it was decent. 8K maybe.
I think that's what we're going to see. Now, I do think K-State missed an opportunity. I think they should have scheduled the game for like 3:30 against West Virginia, and had a watch party for the Sugar Bowl in Bramage Coliseum, in the Shamrock Zone. If you're one of those elite people, they could go to the Shamrock Zone. But yeah, I think there was a missed opportunity there. But doing it this way means everyone can sit at home, watch the game, and then drive in from Kansas City or whatever. Plenty of time.
There will be a good crowd. Arlington is a lot closer than New Orleans. And also, a trip to Arlington was a lot cheaper than going to New Orleans
a lot of sticker shock
on New Year's. So I actually am going to backtrack. I think this will be probably, if not the same, if not better crowd than Wichita State.
I think a lot of people, I've talked to some people that have gone to bowl games that have decided, look, it's far, it's expensive, and you know what? We're excited to go watch basketball. We can watch this game on TV and go to Bramage Coliseum and watch Jerome Tang play his first Big 12 game. Congratulations to Jerome Tang on his first technical, by the way. He claims it wasn't for language.
It wasn't him.
No, it was.
I thought it was the bench.
No, he went out too far on the floor.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
Who called it? I wasn't in the arena at that point.
Was it not Kip?
Was it Kip?
I don't know, because there was two damn bald refs.
Does Kip Kissinger have an apartment at Jardine?
I don't know what's going on with it. Maybe he's from Kansas City?
He's got to be from Kansas City or something. Because he did the Nebraska game.
Yeah.
He's here every other game. And the games he's not working, usually John Higgins or Doug Sermons is there. So,
and Brett Smith was the other guy. He's taller, but he's also bald. And I think it might have been him, but he said you're too far on the floor. And Tang was funny because, first of all, he was worried his mom was upset that he used bad language, so he wanted to clarify he didn't use bad language. But he said, I was trying to get my guys to stop the fast break, and my technical stopped the fast break, so I guess I got that done. But yeah, that's his first technical.
Big 12 basketball needs more muscular, buff referees like football has.
Really? That's what you're going for?
Yeah.
Kip's pretty beefy.
Give him credit. Good old Dougie Fresh has to step it up, though.
Yeah. Get him in a weight room.
John Higgins.
He has a pass because of his beautiful hair.
It's the hair, man. It's so nice. I got to go. That's it for the Power Cat Questions podcast. We appreciate you listening. As I said, we'll have a couple more podcasts this week or in the upcoming window of days between now and our departure for the Sugar Bowl. We'll be on the ground in New Orleans for the 27th because that's when everything starts in terms of practices the media can go to and press conferences and all the good stuff. Go Power Cat will be there. Follow along, subscribe to our YouTube channel, do all those things. Subscribe to this podcast, for heaven's sakes. Why haven't you? Think about it. Why haven't you?
Thank you for listening to the Power Cat Podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to our show at Apple, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Power Cat Podcast, all rights reserved, gopowercat.com.
With Blue Link Plus, you can access your Hyundai Tucson Limited remotely. Doors unlocked, temperature set, lost car found.
There it is.
Get complimentary class-leading Blue Link Plus. Call 562-314-4603 for complete details.
CBS Sunday, February 11th, after Super Bowl 58.
You collect rewards, right?
This is how I make my living. It's the debut. Everyone's looking for something. Of a new hero.
You strong swimmer? So-so. So-so. So-so's okay.
Justin Hartley stars.
How you survive, you make quick, smart decisions, and you never let panic take the wheel. Sounds cool. It is cool, actually. Very cool.
Tracker, part of CBS Premiere Week, Sunday, February 11th after Super Bowl 58 on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.